The James Webb Telescope have undermined the case for the Big Bang.
Telescope ever launched into space made another successful step on its journey to a point 1,000,000 miles away from Earth.
There are moments in history when the world seems to stop, when the ordinary flow of time halts and something slips through the cracks of what we thought we knew. This was one of those moments. Somewhere in the silence between stars, the James Webb Space Telescope looked out into a sliver of night so quiet, so distant, it was almost forgotten. A piece of sky where nothing was expected. Just another empty patch in the endless sea. And yet something looked back. It began as a whisper, a faint, rhythmic flicker in the void. Nothing wild or dramatic. Just light. Soft. Repeating. Structured. But this wasn't the light of stars being born or the chaotic blaze of galaxies colliding. This was different. Ordered. Familiar. A geometry so precise it didn't belong to nature. It belonged to intention. And suddenly silence turned to awe. 7 trillion miles away, or about 1,100 light years from Earth, there appeared to be light. But not just light, city lights. Lines and curves. Clusters and grids. Like something seen from an airplane window on a clear night looking down on Earth. But this wasn't Earth. This was a planet no one had ever touched, circling a star no one had ever named, lost in the black of space. The first scientists to see it said nothing. They just stared. One of them cried. Because this wasn't supposed to happen. The James Webb Telescope was never built to find aliens. It was made to look back in time, to understand how stars came to be, how planets formed. It wasn't designed to catch the glow of distant cities, let alone the possible heartbeat of another civilization. But that's exactly what it might have done. What it saw wasn't noise. It wasn't random. It was a pulse. A rhythm. A message written not in language, but in pattern. Lights blinking in precise intervals. Heat blooming across a surface like morning spreading through a city. It didn't say hello. It didn't need to. Its presence was enough. This wasn't the wild beauty of space. This was structure. This was civilization. And just like that, everything changed. Scientists scrambled. They checked, rechecked, reanalyzed. They broke the light into pieces, ran it through models, compared it to our own satellite images of Earth at night. What they found was staggering. There were zones, areas brighter than others, laid out in tight grids and sprawling arcs. Places that suggested streets, districts, maybe even design. Human eyes couldn't look away because deep down we recognized it. We had seen this before on our own world. But this wasn't just about light. There was something else hidden in the data. Something heavy. In the reflected spectra, researchers found fingerprints of chemicals that shouldn't be there. Not in nature. Not in random chance. Compounds like nitrogen dioxide, sulfur dioxide, even faint traces of chlorofluorocarbons. These are the leftovers of industry, of machines, energy, pollution. Not signs of life, but signs of living. And in that moment, the light was no longer just beautiful. It was real. Because light like that doesn't just happen. It's made, built, sustained, managed. And if something was managing light 1,100 years ago on a planet we only just noticed, what does that say about everything we thought we knew? About our place in the universe? About our loneliness? No one could speak it out loud, not at first. But the question was already there, burning beneath the surface of every stunned mind. Are we still alone? Or did we just see, for the first time in human history, proof that we never were? The world didn't sleep that night. Not really. Somewhere beneath the hum of everyday life, something had shifted. People looked up a little longer. Cities seemed quieter. Not out of fear but wonder, as if the stars themselves had whispered a secret we weren't meant to hear just yet. In labs and observatories, minds that had once dealt in equations and theories were now wrestling with something far more emotional, a hope. Cautious, trembling hope. The kind that comes when everything you've ever believed about your place in the cosmos is suddenly lit by a distant lamp. The data kept coming. Night after night, the James Webb Telescope returned its silent reports. Not wild or erratic bursts, but consistent, pulsing waves. The light didn't dim. It didn't stutter. If anything, it seemed stable. As if the civilization, if that's what it was, had endured. Had lasted. For how long, no one could say. All we knew was this: 1,000 years ago, on a world we had never touched, someone was there. And they were lighting the dark. But it wasn't just the lights. It was what the lights told us. They were spread in a way that defied randomness. They hugged coastlines, if that's what they were. They circled what looked like basins or lakes. They clustered in formations too ordered to be chance. It was like watching a heartbeat in the night, like seeing veins glowing with life beneath the skin of a distant world. And then came the heat. The telescope's thermal readings revealed subtle but unmistakable signs, localized heat zones that didn't match the surrounding landscape. Warm spots flaring up and then fading in repeating cycles. Patterns that matched the planet's day-night rhythm. Like cities powering up at dawn, cooling again at dusk. It was familiar. Too familiar. It was what we did. And for the first time in our long search, we weren't looking at hypotheticals. This wasn't a blip on a radio telescope. It wasn't wishful thinking shaped into signals. This was light, heat, chemicals, patterns. A fingerprint left by something that built, that consumed, that glowed. And still, no message. That was perhaps the most haunting part. No words, no symbols, no signal beamed directly to us across the void. Just the quiet, consistent presence of civilization, as if they were too busy living their lives to consider that someone else might be watching. Or maybe they didn't need to say anything. Maybe this was their message. Their cities shining through time. Their atmosphere tainted with the trace of progress. Their industry humming like a soft echo in the cold. Maybe it was never meant to be communication. Maybe it was just existence. And in that there was something deeply human. Because isn't that what we do? We light up the night, never thinking who might be watching. We burn and build and reshape the world around us, leaving behind footprints not for recognition, but because it's what we are. Creators. Carvers of light. Architects of presence. And now somewhere out there, something else might be doing the same. The questions started to evolve. If this wasn't a message, was it an invitation? A warning? Or just a mirror held up across the stars, showing us what we might become or what we might already be? People began to imagine what life could look like on that distant world. Were there cities like ours? Did they sleep beneath skies crowded with light? Did they sing? Did they fight? Were they still alive, or had the light we saw been the final flicker of something long gone? And most haunting of all, if they had seen us, would they recognize us? Would our lights mean anything to them? Would they know that somewhere, across the gulf of centuries and silence, we were watching too? It's strange how something so distant can feel so close. The lights were a whisper from the past, an echo of something that once lived, once burned bright across a planet not so different from our own. And as the world absorbed the magnitude of it, something stirred deep within us, something ancient and fragile. A memory of loneliness, of staring into the night sky for generations, wondering if anyone was ever going to answer back. And now they had. Not with voices or signs, not with ships or signals, but with the same thing we've used to declare our presence to the void: light. City lights. Billions of years of cosmic silence, and this was the reply, a soft shimmer 1,100 light-years away, pulsing with the rhythm of life. Not fantasy. Not theory. Just light, shaped by hands or minds perhaps long gone. A beacon not of intention but of existence. And maybe that's all we ever needed. As the days passed, scientists began to release more details. The star this planet circled was stable, almost eerily similar to our sun. The planet itself, just the right distance, not too cold, not too hot, had the atmospheric signatures we'd only dreamed of finding. There was nitrogen, oxygen, even traces of ozone. The fingerprints of a world shaped by something alive. And then those industrial byproducts. Not just pollution, but history. A story told in chemicals. A rise. A bloom. A civilization. People began to imagine what might have happened there since the light first left. 1,000 years of possibility. Maybe they'd evolved. Maybe their lights now stretched across the globe, woven together in ways we couldn't even begin to picture. Or maybe they'd vanished. Maybe those lights were the last breath of a species that had reached too far, too fast. But either way, it was real. And it changed us. Theology, philosophy, science, none of it was untouched. What once belonged to dreams now stood in the data. The idea that we were special, singular, chosen, cracked. But it didn't break us. It humbled us. Gave us perspective. We were no longer the only ones writing our story in the dark. There were others. At least once. Maybe still. And it made our world feel small, not in a belittling way, but in a precious one. Fragile. Temporary. Worth preserving. Some people began to see our own cities differently. From above, Earth shimmered with the same gentle glow. A planet alive with intent. Lights clustering where we worked, where we loved, where we dreamed. No longer just signs of progress, but potential messages. A silent signal stretching outward, hoping that someday someone would see what we saw. The discovery reshaped the goals of space exploration. No longer were we just looking for planets that could hold life. We were now listening for echoes of civilizations like our own, those who left traces not because they wanted to be found, but because they simply lived long enough to leave them behind. And that may be the truest connection of all, not communication, but continuity. The idea that intelligence, wherever it sparks in the universe, leaves behind light. That across billions of stars, across the chasm of time, there are others carving their place into the fabric of existence just as we do. And so, we keep watching. We look to the stars with new eyes. Not for answers, but for reflections. For signs that the universe is not just a void to be measured, but a story still being told one civilization at a time. One city. One light. And maybe someday someone out there will catch a shimmer from Earth. A flicker of our cities. A quiet pulse from a tiny blue world that once dared to wonder. And they'll pause, just like we did, and feel that same strange awe. Because in that moment, they too will know. They were never alone. And neither were we.